kind of the kind of where we try to decide what our kind of main conclusions are, and this is kind of trying to summarize in some way what we think should be. And the idea is, we're going to have this write-up. This is going to be this kind of all the text you've been generating. We're going to put in some kind of a white paper. That will be, we'll distribute that back to all of you when we assemble it, hopefully in the next few weeks, and then get feedback from you, which you may or may not want to give, but we welcome you to send it back with tracking changes turned on, and then we'll edit it again. Then we'll send it out to the AIMS and WGCM email aliases in preparation for that meeting in end of September. And during that joint one-day session we have with AIMS and WGCM, we'll go over it there and kind of get people's feedback there. It'll probably go through another round of editing there, and then from that we'll probably have some kind of pretty much final version. Hopefully it won't change a whole lot from what the last version you see to what comes out of that WGCM AIMS meeting. That'll be more to get reaction of the different people that are in these two groups. And then I think a good idea would be to take some kind of shortened version of that and maybe send it to EOS, because we figure that'll hit the two communities. I mean, BAMS is kind of too much on the climate side, and I think none of the carbon cycle biogeochemistry community probably reads BAMS, but because that's typically where WGCM has sent all the things we've done on modeling and comparison descriptions, and we have a paper now to review in BAMS kind of describing this multi-model analysis effort, and but I think for this kind of purpose, EOS may be a good idea. So I think that'd be kind of the plan, and that we'd probably try to send that in, sometime later in the year, maybe.
If we want to do a workshop report, then it has to be science. It can't just be so and so said this and so said that.
Right.
And it has to be we have to submit it within, I forget, but it's 30 or 60 days of the workshop itself.
Oh, really? 30 to 60 days.
They're very tight about that. Something like that. I can check the website while we're talking about it.
Okay. Well, that kind of, well, depends on what you say. I mean, if the clock starts ticking from the WGCM AIMS session.
And it will start ticking tomorrow.
Yeah, but I mean, if we say that the final version was iterated on at the WGCM AIMS session, no, that wouldn't cut it.
It wouldn't be a workshop.
Okay. What are the other options?
I'll look it up.
Okay.
It couldn't be like a white paper, and then, you can say that it started as discussions at a workshop, but it's not a start, it's a summary of the workshop.
Yeah, I don't
It
know.
might be 90 days, but let me check.
Okay, so
Like it's on
what we want to do now, with the idea that there'd be some kind of executive summary at the beginning of this report, would be to just kind of get feedback from you as to what you think you'd like to see as the kind of main points in the executive summary, and then when we put this all together, we'll have to merge in some other things that were highlighted in the different PowerPoint presentations from these different groups, from the breakout groups. But I think while everybody's kind of fresh here and still thinking about these things, and it's fresh in your mind, there may be some things that may have struck you that were pretty important that you'd like to see kind of highlighted. And so that's kind of the idea here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enter these as we go through them. And I think we kind of just can go through the different working groups, or the breakout groups. So one was on carbon cycle. So is there any bullet points the carbon cycle people would like to have highlighted?
This is executive summary then.
Yep.
It's a conclusion land use change and simple biology motions.
Yeah.
Are the two major ones.
Yeah.
What would that be?
Including anthropogenic land use change.
Or the effects of
Well, the actual change.
Including
land use and land management, isn't it?
including.
right.
like that.
We were going to fix that later. That's good enough.
So including, so in other words, it's important to include land use change. Is that, we're now
as far as the status to be incorporated, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, the acronym that's used is land use and land use change. LUAUC. So right. So I mean, maybe the way to do this, Jerry, is to say that some models already include a closed carbon cycle, but none have yet included effects of land use change and land management in a consistent way. And that's a priority for the TAR fifth assessment on the top.
So what was that again? Some models already include a closed carbon cycle, but
none have yet included. None have yet consistently included the impacts of land use change and land management. And that will be a priority for full stop. This will be a priority for the models to be used in the assessment.
okay.
And the ocean biology.
Okay.
I guess it's simple.
Okay. Yeah. The we also expect core models to core climate carbon cycle models to all include some simple representation of ocean biology in AR5.
Okay.
And then, do you want anything on the Vanguard models?
Sure.
Although all models won't include other potentially important processes, such as won't include other potentially important processes, such as micronutrient limitations on ocean ecosystems, comma, nitrogen limitations on terrestrial ecosystems. It should be nitrogen. Yeah.
Nitrogen?
Yeah, nitrogen limitations on terrestrial ecosystems.
Ozone pollution?
And increases in tropospheric ozone. Comma, it's a long sentence.
Yep.
It is anticipated that some models will be
Are you implementing some or all of these?
sorry?
Yeah.
Are you implementing some or all of these?
Yeah, that's fine.
What about the anthropogenic fires?
Yeah, that should be in that list as well. Actually, Gerald just noted really long.
What was that list? What was the other one?
Fire.
The impact of anthropogenic processes on fires. Something impact of anthropogenic forces on fires.
Ocean bottom chemistry.
Basically, man-made fires over after.
Or fire suppression.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Negative fire setting.
And also, if it's an anthropogenic component, climate could produce more lightning launches.
That's it. Fires, yeah. In ignition. No, not lightning.
Not lightning?
George keeps saying that the wildfires is being already part of the core.
Yeah.
This Vanguard.
Okay, maybe we should put that up at the top.
Yeah.
I don't think fire suppression is going to be.
You don't think fire suppression?
They don't get it.
Ocean bottom chemistry.
That's also why we have this pulse next to the ocean ecosystem.
In addition.
Ocean.
Bottom chemistry.
Yep.
Broad concept.
Yeah. So this first part of the sentence is a list of things that all models won't include these. So is fire suppression in that list then, Kathy?
I don't think any of them are going to do fire suppression. They're going to do.
I mean, this is on the list of things they could do, but in the end of it, it's anticipated that some models,
Some models will do.
or how about maybe?
Well, you could just get rid of the fire suppression bracket, couldn't you?
Yeah.
part of impact management process.
Because there's the
And the
ignition part.
impact of wildland fires, because the way that they're implementing the fire is through climate controls and
Maybe we should call
fueling
it anthropogenic management of fires.
and probability of ignition. Sorry.
Anthropogenic management of fires. Or
Yeah.
something.
I mean, what the way the group seemed to be looking at this is that wildfires such as lightning are already part of that would be the core group, whereas the anthropogenic
We should probably put it in there,
is
Jerry.
on
actually,
the is on the vanguard.
So we'd say in the second bullet, some models already include those, but none have yet consistently included the impacts of land use management and land management, brackets including natural fires. Is that land management?
And that's not really land.
No, it isn't.
Sort of
Impacts of land use change, land management, comma,
wildfires.
and wildfires.
Wildland
And then,
fires.
Wild land fires?
just wildfires.
Wildfires?
And I guess we want to make a new sentence now. Cool.
Yep.
I think that covered us.
Is that enough for
Probably.
More than enough.
carbon cycle?
We're going to need a summary on the executive summary, I think.
I think you're right.
That's okay. And we may flesh this out with other things
Yeah.
that come out of these other. But I think these are the things that if you think they definitely need to be in there. Okay, what about dynamic vegetation?
Somebody looking at the summary slide we did just to see, just so we're not all doing it from memory. And what the points are.
I've got all the text and I've got it all,
Okay.
so I'll be able to reconcile it.
So, what about dynamical vegetation? I think there was this issue about terminology that I felt helpful if we clarified
I
that.
think at the end all of our those bullet points apply to both.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
I think we converged. I don't think we ever really considered them separately, Jerry. So
Yeah.
I would be tempted just to change the title of the top one.
Excuse me, which one?
Yeah, because that's what ended up being kind of used, right?
Although I think the concept of biogeography and succession need to be in biogeography being in core and successional processes coming into Vanguard.
Yeah, I think actually in the write-up put it the other way around, which is that the core models include some veg dynamics, and that's taken to mean uniquely by this group, I think, successional process with the existing vegetation type, and then biogeographic processes potentially Vanguard things.
So what was that again?
I'd like to see how they
Go
do
figure.
it. But yeah,
This
go
is-
figure. Because LPJ is not a successional model. LPJ is a
I
biogeography
think he's
model.
looking more at his own work with Jim.
Yeah, I think we want to generalize here, and what NCAR is doing and what Hadley is doing
I mean, I think
is the other way around.
we could lift bullets very easily out of that write-up
Yeah.
and put them on this. So, I mean, I think that would be all right for the time being. I'd be happy to do that if you want, Jerry.
So you wanted some dynamical vegetation bullet here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be tempted just to lift some stuff out of there that's I've got it with me, but
Do you have that on there, Kathy?
I have.
I've got it here actually. I mean,
He gave it to me.
in some senses, it would be good if these bullets were all just lifted off here, wouldn't it? Essentially, just reinvented them, but not written quite as well.
Are they? So there are you have them on there.
We have them on here. They haven't got executive summary elements, but what I could do, if you like, is to Dave and I could lift out a couple of basically of these and then give them to you in a minute, if you like.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good.
I've got it.
I think the basic thing here is really regrowth, including successional related changes too.
I've got something like modeling groups are also implementing various schemes for biogeography and successional processes under core.
Okay. So what was that again?
Modeling groups are also implementing various schemes or strategies for biogeography and successional processes in core.
What about regrowth?
Because I mean, the regrowth actually
That's-
goes along with the land use change.
Yeah.
Did you say something about regrowth on land use change?
Well, it also kind of goes along with your succession too.
Yeah, I guess it's in those statements.
Yeah.
I don't think we
Okay, so
need
that's all. Yeah, you don't need a separate bullet on that. So is this bullet? Okay.
Yeah, but I still think you need sort of the regrowth in there. I mean, you can have succession without regrowth.
Just add it to
For regrowth, comma, biogeography.
And regrowth. It'd be great to actually, I mean, for our community, when we write this up, to define what these are. All right. Anything else under this? So we did kind of what the breakout groups did. We just kind of combined these status of carbon cycle and dynamical vegetation. And if there's other things you guys want in there, you can just highlight them in your.
Yeah, I mean maybe if we just
Yeah.
just think about it.
Gerald, is it further down in the outline, do you talk about what these additions enable us to do? I mean, given that this might address lay audience to some extent, you might want to think about that a little bit.
Yeah. So
why is this important?
Yeah. So what? So that'd be kind of in the like the first part of this would. I mean, this is important because. I mean, why is this important?
Why is that important?
Putting all these
Why
things
is
in.
land use change and simple biology important?
Well, because there's a lot of empirical evidence that the carbon cycle responds to climate change. And because first generation climate carbon cycle models indicate a potential for a large climate carbon cycle feedback.
Right, and then just say which would make the challenge of achieving any particular stabilization target more difficult.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's the way we're viewing it these days.
So put all the bad news up front.
Well, it's going to be full of good news later.
Something like that. Okay. Oh, and then we have to tie that into. Something like that. All right. So, how about aerosols and chemistry? We've got some bullets, but you can just, do you have them? You can.
I'll scribble some stuff on.
Okay.
Not much.
So we have the same for chemistry.
You want to review my next paper?
Who would you put me on it?
There you go.
Oh. So one is aerosols and chemistry need to be considered in Earth system models for a number of reasons. Earth system models for a number of reasons. And a new consideration for IPCC is the ability of the ESM to study air quality, to be used what? Yeah, to be used by the impact. So the working with 2 and the scenario working with 3 communities. And scenario communities.
Yep.
Want the four of them first, or you want to discuss them better?
You can go ahead.
Okay, I can. So the second one is for AR5. Most models will have a representation of the indirect effect of aerosols. So using more comprehensive schemes than AR4, yes, the same sentence.
Yep.
For AR4.
Yep.
And they will treat their temporal change contrast to the future. So third one, we have 5. But third is the representation of aerosols and chemistry. Is likely to be more comprehensive. So is likely to be more comprehensive for the near term. So it's 2005-2030. Then for the long term, so 2100 and beyond. So experiments. So fourth is mixed phase and ice phase cloud aerosol interactions. So mixed phase and ice phase cloud aerosol interactions are likely to be handled rather crudely in AR5 simulation.
For the what?
Are likely to be handled rather crudely.
Oh.
Yeah. In AR5 simulations. This is a subject of ongoing research. And the last one is an integrated effort in producing a past/current/future. So past, current, and future. /current/future. Current, future emissions of aerosols and ozone precursors would ensure the use of consistent and documented data relevant to climate carbon cycle. Okay, relevant to climate.
What?
Documented data relevant.
Relevant.
Relevant to climate / carbon cycle / aerosols / chemistry communities.
That's more.
Okay, that's what we have.
Okay.
Good art.
A lot of slashes. All right. Yep. Anybody else wanted to add on that?
Jerry?
Yeah.
To add to why it's likely that the comprehensive models be used in the short term, I would add something like due to computational resource limitations. Because it wouldn't be obvious why that should be this limited. We're limiting it because of we don't have enough CP time.
Okay.
They should leave it for big computer.
Well, it was partly that, and partly that we figured that beyond 2100, the CO2 signal is going to swamp whatever the aerosols want to do. But maybe that's, if there's enough mitigation, maybe that's not true.
But even locally, it may not be true. It's really fluid.
Well, the mitigation, yeah, wait.
Chemistry and climate.
The effects will be biggest near term, but
Overwhelm any effects from aerosols and chemistry?
I mean, I was opening it up for comment. I'm not sure that, but that was our thought. So if you guys don't agree, we should take it out.
Well, that would be true for the radiative force thing again, but then ozone levels, if we're falling into, are going to be huge.
Oh,
and we'll
literally a
impact
mouse.
A mouse.
yeah,
Not one on your desk.
very habituated, yeah. Actually, you might want to invert that and say, and then don't start typing, but just invert that and say that, and partly due to the expectation that effects from aerosols and chemistry may be particularly important over this time frame.
Yeah.
The aerosols and chemistry.
That the effects of aerosols and chemistry would be particularly important over this time frame.
That's especially true for, I think that's true of aerosols. I think it's the point you were making.
Well,
Chemistry, it carries on being important through the impacts on the carbon cycle.
yeah, I mean, the impact on the carbon cycle could be huge by 2100 if it is
Oh, yeah,
the
no.
A2 scenario. So,
Yes.
I don't.
Well,
not
the carbon
completely.
cycle can be big at any point, particularly later, but there's...
No, but the impact of ozone on the carbon cycle would be larger at the end by 2100 than it is by 2030.
Well,
So I'm not particularly crazy about that sentence.
Like just take out chemistry.
Take care of my comments.
Well, it is completely safe to say partly due to computational limitations.
Yeah, right.
Yes. The rest out,
Yeah.
I mean, you can actually, then in the extensions, you can add these other points and actually not try and squish them in the bullet.
I think that's all right. I would just take out the chemistry because part of the reason the biggest feedback from the chemistry is via the aerosols, isn't it? No doubt about that.
Just take out the chemistry.
Yeah, take out the chemistry.
is it really? In the vertical, with ozone, is it?
Well,
Well-
ozone's important via the carbon cycle effect, right?
No,
Because the idea about-
vertical distribution
No,
of
but,
temperature change.
Well,
but even then, by 2100, that part will be swamped by the CO2.
expectation?
No, because it'll change to zero.
yeah, right.
Take out that partly due to.
But there's no change.
Expectation
It lowers it
that.
quite a bit. That's why the upper troposphere is cooling. It's from ozone.
So is that so? We're gonna
Expectation is
And it's actually cool. The observations are cool.
just have another sentence.
Deeper part of
Troposphere. And that's from ozone.
So aerosols and chemistry. So what do you think, Jean-Francois? Take out chemistry.
Yes.
Part of the reason why one might want to do short-term experiments would be for more to have well-resolved strategies.
Yeah.
Well, stratosphere is different than...
With stratospheric chemistry, the
Yeah.
issue there is ozone.
Ozone, right? Yeah.
No, it's not only stratosphere, it's if you take tropopause level, stuff like that, so it's both. And you don't know what would happen if the tropopause goes much higher and so on. So this has not really been studied for chemistry, so
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
The time frame you're talking about here is the short time.
The short term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this time frame shorter? Oh yeah, okay. So in this case,
Yeah.
But you use near term above, so why don't you
Oh, yeah.
type this in?
Yep. Well, maybe we can leave that in there for now, and then
That implies less important.
yeah,
Is
which
that
is
true?
true. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, I think so. Okay. Any other points? Oh.
You don't look at the other ones.
Oh, you want to look at the other ones?
I don't know. To have some comments in this.
Anybody else have any comments on these?
Oh, I have the air quality. You might want to say there's a rationale, a little bit up on the page. I want to say long-term air quality trends because it's not studying, short-term. It's really the long-term trends that's
Study long-term air quality trends.
yeah. So is that okay, Jim?
Changes more than trends.
Changes.
Yeah.
Why this long term?
Because you can't use this to look at short-term air quality. There's a whole different set of models, basin models. That's what they do. So that's not really.
Yeah, but will basin
What
models
time
be doing it
will
for 2030?
Yeah, it supports what we call long-term
yeah,
and short-term.
this is
So
2030.
in this case, long-term with
actually, okay, then you actually can't use the term. Yeah, long-term.
long-term is not
For the air quality community, 2030 is long-term.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
air quality changes.
Well, if you guys want to decide on a different nomenclature for that period between now and 2030 and the period beyond that, I'm happy
or just
with that.
take out long-term. I think trends actually is for a bullet point. That's good enough.
trends.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay. How about any of these other ones here?
The last one is introducing past current, future there is no way.
The last one?
Introducing past current with it. Yeah, this one.
Yep. Are we okay with these?
Is the last bullet point a recommendation? I'm not sure.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
Okay,
we
we have a
actually
separate section.
haggled about the wording and we didn't like what we came up with. Maybe you can do better. But the idea was we're really looking for internal consistency between the various
Okay.
emission inventories that are used in these
Saying
communities.
great effort is needed in producing these things or something.
Yeah.
In the text, we
This
have
is recommendation.
Yeah.
We have a section on recommendations at the end of this.
yeah, in the text we really say we should do an integrated assessment or something like that.
I
We didn't,
didn't know what it was.
I don't know if what we want to do that.
Should I move this to the recommendation section?
Yeah, this is more recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah, recommendations. Ah. And if
Okay.
we want integrated effort, integrated assessment, integrated synthesis.
I wouldn't say
We
assessment.
we
That's,
said synthesis maybe?
Census?
I think that's good enough for a bullet point.
Okay,
Integrated
for now.
effort?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have some more text in the
Yeah.
text to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote some text in that too, so they can combine those.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so these all okay then? Yep. All right. So experimental design to 2030. So that was the short-term team.
Okay, I have 7 suggested bullets, which
Okay.
I've made succinct. We want to find out.
Okay.
So, first one was a prime goal of projections for the next 25 years is to provide better guidance as to the likelihood of changes in extremes on a regional scale.
Okay.
That's correct. Why do we do that?
It's a prime goal.
Um,
It's good to have goals.
Second one is to produce such regional scale predictions will require,
Do we really want to use predictions?
well, so that we can.
Yeah, that was better than forecast.
Yeah, we
Okay.
dropped forecast.
Good.
Will require finer resolution models with additional physics. And then I had after physics a semicolon. Both are necessary, and compromises will be required to make the simulations computationally feasible.
Did you want to?
Talk about these as we go.
Yeah, we can do that.
The first one, do you want to really say, while the goal of this is to provide better guidance, this is really a research, on this time scale, it's still largely research. We don't, this is one of those places we know the models have problems now, so, next 25 years. Yeah, so do you want to have something in there that says, you know, essentially indicates that there's research that needs to go in to figure out how to do this, that we're not sure we can actually provide this guidance in AR for?
Well, it's a goal. It's a goal.
It's a comment, even though we don't think we.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't say we're going to do it. It's a goal.
Unrealistic goal.
Yeah, no,
That's possible.
What's a possible goal?
No, it says, it says predictions are possible, you know. There are predictions are possible, whether there's any skill, it's possible.
Well, how about changing trying to challenging goal of projections or something?
Oh, challenging, that's nice.
No, but it still doesn't convey the uncertainty whether it's even possible.
Well, if it's
You
challenging.
can't provide better guidance than we do already, which is no.
Yeah, right.
It's about a stretch
it's not
goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, better.
I think it can.
It's bad now, so you want to get better.
That's a really low hurdle.
Yeah, it's good to set the bar low.
Well, I'm not sure we can hurdle it. Even if it's a bump in the road, I'm not sure we get over it. That's my problem with it. It's not conveying the scientific uncertainty of the whole, whether we can do initial value problems on decadal timescales. Period.
This, or maybe something about.
It doesn't apply just to initial value problems, though, does it?
Yeah,
No, it doesn't.
on that timescale first.
No, it doesn't. I mean, if we look at the spread of GCMs even without dealing with the initial condition problem, the spread's much smaller over 25 years than it is
You
over
won't get any signal if you can't do the initial value problem.
You do in all the models.
But look, it would even be a contribution to say we haven't figured out how to do this, right? So
We have to figure out how to do it. I mean, it's
yeah. I mean, well, we could say we tried and not achieved.
We could say a research task would be to determine whether this is indeed possible.
Yes.
This is an ongoing research.
What I was looking for.
Why are we researching?
Yeah,
Good.
that's fine. I mean,
This goal. There you go. Yep. Okay.
Now, on the second one, after physics, do you want to put brackets, aerosols, and simple chemistry?
And dynamic vegetation.
Yeah.
that's not physics. You can't
Forgot
have
this
that as
again.
physics.
Is dynamic vegetation what you want when it grows in place? Is that right?
Well, it's
In the
dynamic
context
in
of
the sense
this
that
meeting, it's
healthy.
changing.
That's a very GCM's view of what is meant by physics.
Well, not necessarily additional physics. We don't improve the physics of what's in there already, and then include simple chemistry and aerosols. Right? I mean, it's not so much we're adding additional physics to the model.
Well, if if you have a land surface model that is not a dynamic vegetation model, then you would be adding something. And if all you're doing is specifying the aerosols and the atmosphere composition, then you don't have aerosol and atmosphere chemistry in either.
Yeah.
So the idea was to actually have these subroutines added in.
Right,
So it would be
it was recognized that some of these errors would require the errors that are already in these models to make these regional scale predictions, you're going to have improved physics, right? Not necessarily additional, because if you're talking about physics, I guess it's what you call physics.
But it's also what you call the standard run. Since the standard run generally didn't have those guys in there,
Well, I would say that require finer resolution models with the inclusion of chemistry and aerosols.
Of simple chemistry and aerosols, or just chemistry and aerosols?
Simple. That's
Okay.
simple. We can say simple.
Okay.
okay.
It doesn't have to be simple.
Yeah.
Because of the next portion of the sentence.
Oh, you've already made your decision then?
Oh,
The ocean is really simple.
Well, we know we can't do it
Alright,
right.
I stepped
The
above
best way
no
we know.
chemistry.
So
What about
anything less
vegetation?
than that is
And then you need to
Chemistry, aerosols, and revegetation.
Or no, what's
The
the
carbon
word?
cycle, no, we're pitching on the cycle.
No,
No,
carbon
not
cycle.
carbon
Say
cycle.
carbon cycle.
It's just something about vegetation.
But isn't the
in re-
vegetation
regrowing
represented
ve-
in the land surface through
About
carbon cycle?
regrowing vegetation.
I like that.
Regrowth of vegetation?
Regrowing.
Regrowing?
Yeah.
Well, but presumably what will happen is that in these models, you may get situations in which the vegetation starts wilting because of the climate change, even on this time scale. So I wouldn't call that necessarily regrowth. It's dynamic in the sense that the state is changing.
Yeah.
It's healthy.
You say dynamic vegetation.
Dynamic vegetation?
24 down.
That's where I guess where it goes. Like, where did I get that?
Regrowth in parentheses? No? Okay.
So then the next sentence could be in both this additional physics.
So another one?
Well, where the word these are, which is now sort of.
So we're talking about these simple chemistry, aerosols, and dynamic vegetation.
So
These
there's
are necessary.
now a period after the dynamic
Okay.
vegetation. And both improved physics and finer resolution are necessary. Since it's no longer part of the previous sentence, we need to say.
What's improved physics and what was the other one?
Physics /
Finer
chemistry.
resolution.
Or higher resolution?
High resolution. And then it just picks up from the rest of the sentence right above, which has the words and compromises, etc.
Oh, so you want to put this part
Yeah,
before that other part?
Exactly.
If you change the word physics to process representation, then you
Improved
include
representation,
dynamic
physical,
vegetation,
chemical
right?
process.
Yeah, I think so.
Improved representation.
What was that? What was it?
If you change the word physics
Mhm.
to process representation, then you've included dynamic vegetation.
Now, but you're saying they're necessary, but you're going to compromise. So why are you going to compromise on something that's necessary?
To make the
Doing it the
simulation
best way is
computationally feasible.
computationally infeasible.
How about important
Desirable,
instead of
or
necessary?
Very highly desirable. Or what?
Yes,
If they're
important.
necessary, you can't compromise.
I'm not sure what else is coming in the necessary category for this thing, but another thing that's going to be necessary if we have high quality initial conditions.
Okay, so that's the next.
Okay, let's go to that one.
High
And
quality
in this
initial
case, I
conditions.
just
Flinches every time it comes up. He just starts twitching.
So the suggestion was such
Remember, this is going to be
such
broadcast from the
simulation
web.
will also require accurate ocean
hurdle is
data
so low.
visualization, which is currently problematic.
Should put salinity in here, particularly salinity.
Yes, because
Well, that's not quite right.
particularly the lack of salinity data.
Okay with you, Ron?
Is that the only thing you're going to say about initialization?
That was the only thing I had.
Well, because you put down something about initializing soil moisture.
Yeah, it seemed to me this is so much. This is in effect a bigger problem. So might as well just focus on the big. There's so many other issues.
Well, so, along these lines, soil moisture and sea ice is going to both be.
Well, so much just, remember it took so much just seasonal. So
No, it isn't. I mean, we've done runs in which 15 years later, we've seen the effect of different deep ground soil moisture visualizations. Yeah.
you must have a deep soil moisture.
We do actually have a deep soil moisture.
I know ours goes out at least 5 months.
So should we say something about this?
Multi-water.
It's not going to go out 25 years, though, is it?
You can just say another issue such as.
Oh, that's not simple enough.
Other initialization data sets such as soil moisture would also be required.
Is there
Also,
a
Ron
methodological
Sainz,
thing here
sea
about
ice.
initializing here? I mean, it's not
I
just
don't
the
know
data,
anybody
it's the simulation process.
doing CIs. I think ECM
Well,
PFDF
the
does
logical
soil
problem
moisture.
is what if your ocean doesn't look like the initialized ocean? Then you nudge it towards it,
Right,
but in doing
obviously,
so,
I think
you have to violate energy conservation.
But it's that's fine.
So, on that,
CI's dynamics.
that means therefore it's
Yeah, sea ice is easier in soil moisture.
I mean, there are
sea ice thicknesses are still
Sea ice distribution, the thickness is
Yeah,
not.
but you can, I mean, that's still easier in soil moisture.
There's no, soil moisture is being done in NWP.
Yeah, but not directly. I mean,
It's still at least taking,
Globally?
yeah,
Really?
you're taking credit. ECMWF and NWF does it.
there's no.
Are they actually doing, I mean, they're providing that as one of their data products, but is it actually an assimilated product? They're actually,
How they come up with the initial value for that thing, I don't know the details, but I do know that they have some scheme to initialize it.
there's no
But they have,
Yeah, they're using,
that could
I think they're
be,
using.
but they have none for
Miser
sea
data
ice.
for-
That's my point, is even,
It doesn't give you anything to go
it's
over.
good or no good,
Just
they
use
have
it.
none.
sea ice is even shorter, isn't it?
the Cadle.
That long?
Yeah.
Takes that long to melt sea ice?
It's because it's interacting with the ocean that we don't know either.
So there must be some satellite, they were driving
I
something
think
from
it's,
some
I think
satellite.
it's Miser gets surface soil moisture, but it only goes to the top 2 or 3 centimeters. And when you have closed canopies, it's very problematic. So there are attempts to get it at surface soil moisture, and the observations that we take in the field, we don't even want to go.
And then there was going to be the
You can
NASA
just
soil moisture
use-
satellite.
Agent Orange to get rid of the canopies.
That's funny, I have solar power.
In the U.S. approach.
All right.
I started thinking about these.
Next one.
Given that scenarios of long-lived trace gases do not differ substantially prior to 2030, only one such scenario is anticipated for this time frame.
Long-lived trace gases. So these are greenhouse gases, basically.
Yeah.
Should we say greenhouse gases instead of long-lived trace gases?
Well, the idea is that it's the long-lived greenhouse gases. Those
Yeah,
what
okay.
goes into the stories.
So do you count methane as long-lived?
Yeah,
Yeah.
15 years.
The model. Okay.
Okay, next one. To assess regional effects will also require gridded emission data for aerosols and short-lived trace gases. And the next sentence is,
Yeah.
a concerted
Yeah,
effort.
Short-lived greenhouse gases.
no, it was for,
What was that again? I
Well, the
missed-
short-lived trace gases, because some of them are
Trace
also
gases.
precursors.
Okay.
A concerted effort will be necessary to produce these data sets.
So maybe this sounds like more of a recommendation.
That second part particularly.
it's, and it, once again, it's one of those that's closely connected with our recommendations.
Yeah. Maybe we
It's nice
should.
that some things are.
Well, we couldn't have done ours without these discussions about some of the other ones too.
So regional climate change effects.
Then, sort of as a sort of subset of that, or it could just be literally the next one, we said scenarios for air pollutants. And in parenthesis, what we meant by that were aerosols and short-lived gases should be provided for both low and high emission projections.
Sounds like an Reconvene.
Could be.
Well, it's experimental setup in a sense.
Well, yeah, that's
Well,
it's
it's
not.
more, yeah, it's more continuation of the previous paragraphs.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
in addition.
Yeah, I think that's okay there.
Okay, two more.
Okay.
To provide statistically significant assessments on the regional scale will likely require ensemble simulations of at least 10 members for each scenario.
On that one, you might want to talk to some of the attribution people, Tom Woodley or Ben Santer, and just, get their, their sort of off the top of the head numbers probably better than most of our, well, certainly better than any my
Well,
top.
this came out of this session we had at the CCSM workshop.
Ben was there.
And Ben was there, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is like a minimum. They'd like to have.
Well worked. Yeah,
they'd like to have many more, but.
It's a minimum, that would get your temperature maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, yeah.
So we're saying at least.
Had, big problem and perhaps a lot more, but I censored it while reading it.
What came out of that was depends on what questions you're asking.
Yeah, and it always depends. Yeah, it depends on which quantity you look at, which time scale. Yeah.
Okay, and then the last one that I had was to incorporate past climate forces and for model verification. Simulations should start sometime during the latter half of the 20th century. And we were more specific.
Okay. Well, and this is also for the relates to the coupled initialization.
When emissions data becomes available at the regional scale, and the atmosphere's emitted equilibrium.
Right. Should we say something about this is also related to the? There's a couple of initialization problem here too, right? I mean, this is co-joined with this. Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. That was it? Peter, do you have anything else? Okay.
Kelly, I raise a question. I'm concerned about going back up to the issue of resolution. Should we also include something about vertical extent?
Yes.
And
Well, for the chemistry.
for the chemistry
So,
and or
Well, you could just put higher resolution open parens, vertical and horizontal.
yeah. Final resolution models, horizontal and vertical.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Like I say, it's not just resolution, you gotta move them all the time.
Yeah.
we have to have the top high enough to capture
It's gotta be near
the rate processes and vertical domain and associated increased vertical domain. That it's increased vertical.
And not talk about the top of the model?
Well, what that means is that the top of the model has to get higher.
So we can take out the part about the top of the model?
Wait.
No, I would say vertical resolution
I think
domain.
Oh, increase vertical resolution. Okay, yeah. So we can take out associated top of the model.
Yeah.
So we can,
No, it's not necessarily simple chemistry from stratosphere.
Well, it probably will have to be simple chemistry for stratosphere too. I mean, you're not going to be able to do it all.
It might be that you use models with high, with a fairly complete stratospheric chemistry package for certain questions. But may not have a sulfur.
Well, but I mean, I think we're mixing things up, Norm, because I mean, if you want to do, you don't need it's not a regional scale prediction. I mean, the problem you're focusing on right now is a regional scale prediction, right? Now we're focusing on something else.
You're focusing on 2030. You're still focusing on a 25-year.
I know, but look, but I mean, there's no reason you couldn't take a snapshot of a year every 10 years for the next 30 years to do this, right?
Well, yeah.
Or run.
I would argue that point. If you're trying to get the impact of the chemistry on the ozone on the NAO or the AO, which is a regional scale prediction then, at high latitudes, there's a pretty good connection there.
Configuration.
I mean, both stratospheric and tropospheric ozone have things that adherents will say are fundamentally necessary, otherwise you can't do it right. But the issue comes, where do you compromise?
No, but
if you want to do the runs or not.
We are going to have to compromise, you already said. So this just leaves the door open for variations in the way in which the experiments are configured.
And it could be, theoretically, that if you're going to do an ensemble, 10-member ensemble, you might want to do one of the runs with really more sophisticated chemistry and see what difference it actually makes relative to what you've done with the simpler versions.
Well, I could see a number of models being run with models like Wacom or like CMAM, which there's, or models like you have, which have quite complete stratospheric chemistry, but not very comprehensive tropospheric chemistry processes. To look at things like ozone recovery. I mean, those are issues that depend on variability. I don't think you can address them adequately in the snapshots. I think we've already found out that that's a problem because of the variability, for instance, in northern latitude stratosphere, which is multi-annual variability.
Oh, I know.
It's a highly variable regime, and I don't think snapshots will do the job, right?
So in any event, it will be something probably handled very distinctly by the different lab groups.
Yeah, mostly what I was objecting to was, I thought it was essentially confusing a variety of, I mean, I guess I can accept the argument that regional scale predictions are associated with this. On the other hand, I think in many ways the focus was on something different. I am very sensitive to the interannual variability of the northern hemisphere winter night polar night jet, or the potential for there to be interactions between NAOs or AOs and QBOs and SAOs, and the need for 500-meter resolution through the lower.
Well, some of those you could maybe sort out a bit.
I know, but I mean,
there are those potentials.
if anybody was to read that and to try to do all the problems that we've talked about in the last 5 minutes, you're going to build a model nobody could run for 30 years. That's all.
I think that we talked about, though, that, and like Masa was talking about, when they did their 20-kilometer model, that also is, you also increase the vertical resolution in the. So I don't think this is inconsistent with what we've been talking about. I mean, the details of how you implement this are up to a lot of interpretation. So maybe this is okay the way it is.
If you leave the science goal as regional scale predictions, I think you have to say you need finer resolution. You may want to have something else about other possible science goals and model formulation. But if you leave this as regional scale predictions, I think you've got to say you've got to have finer resolution.
Yeah. So I think what you're talking about is included in this now, and then the details of how you may do it. I don't think we can really kind of advocate a specific way.
I think what I'm getting at is that things like assessments, runs will be done for things like the ozone assessments. It would be very valuable if they would not be inconsistent or nearly orthogonal to what's done for AR5, for example. This would save some model building effort. So if this includes enough flexibility that those rounds could be used in AR5, that would certainly be valuable.
Yeah. There's probably, at this juncture, we can't really get in much more detail than this, though, don't you think?
No, I think
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay. Anybody have anything else in any of these?
Still, but
Which one?
say anything about that sentence about the scenarios for the pollutants. I still think that would actually would be better in the recommendations following the other one.
No.
But I thought the idea was that we were going to have a central scenario from which we were going to look at several sensitivities to maybe aerosol loading and ozone precursors. So there would be one central one and then a few additional ones.
I would say this. It could go to the previous period. You'd say, a number of alternative scenarios for pollutants should be examined, and then that's part of the experimental design. Now, actually, instead of should be provided, so a number, just the whole sentence would be a number of in front.
Where? In front of this? At
Yeah.
the beginning?
A number of scenarios for pollutants, aerosols, and short-lived gas should be examined. Should be used for
Well, then,
what do we want to say?
so we can actually make it. We can have a recommendation because somebody's going to have to generate these, right? So
Yeah.
we can have this here. Number of scenarios should be provided. Were you talking about kind of low, medium, and high? Wasn't that one of the things?
Well, it sort of depends on what people are interested in, because you might have some that focus on ozone precursors, other ones that are black carbon. So it's just going to depend on what people are interested in. There's a number of things out there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so.
But that's certainly experimental design.
We can translate this into a recommendation.
No, actually,
but it is a
No, I leave it.
Well, I'm leaving it there, but then I'm also going to make a recommendation.
These need to be produced. Scenarios need to be produced. Is that right?
Yeah, but in this case, if you put in the recommendation, it should be connected to what is above. The recommendation should be produced and consistent with the long term and current emissions and something like that.
So,
produce consistent with the model requirements.
Or consistent with other topics or something like that. So that means that it has to be consistent with the other studies that will be done for the past emissions and so on.
So, with but I mean,
but the idea for those were mostly for air quality impact and feedback on maybe climate and precipitation, like changing the aerosols. So I think the way it's stated right now, I think is a little confusing.
Yeah.
Because those are perturbation around the short-term scenario that's going to be produced, for which there's going to be an ensemble of 10 members. And then around that scenario, there will be a few additional scenarios for pollutants.
Okay,
so it's perturbation from the sentence above, mostly. So is it a recommendation or not?
So do you need a recommendation that somebody needs to produce these, or I mean, where are these going to come from?
It's just a
to me, they're just additional scenarios, if you want. So they should be produced when everything is being set up for the short-term simulation. So I don't think it has to be a specific recommendation.
Oh, it doesn't?
It has to be put in where it is above.
Okay.
I would just leave it there. I don't think it needs to be a specific recommendation.
These things are out there, so if the methodology is already there to do these consistent data sets, then one can do the additional ones.
Okay, so this is good enough, this sentence here?
You don't need both.
Yeah, so I took it out of the recommendations part and just leaving it here.
That's right. And you want to make sure that it says it is as perturbation around the scenario that you list above. That's right.
Before low, medium, high, take both.
Yeah. Okay.
I see the part this is the soil moisture and CS thing. Do we really expecting that the 25-year prediction really feels the difference in initial soil moisture?
No, not by 25 years, but we're also going to be looking at what's actually happening in 2010, 11, 12.
Yeah, but that kind of predictability can be felt in even 2 or 3 years time frame. I think
A couple of years
good,
time frame,
good
for
to
sure.
do, good to make the efforts of such thing. But as Ron mentioned, that the
Well, for example, let's say in your historical verification run, you notice that, gee, in this year in the mid-1990s, it was extremely dry in this region. There was a big drought. And lo and behold, your model cannot. And how much of that is because the soil moisture initialization that was used going into that season just was too low? And that was a positive feedback that you missed in the system. And then you're going to tell yourself, well, my model can't get extremes right. I'm not saying it will happen, but I think it has. In fact, there's a lot of research issues that Randy Koster and others have published saying it does happen.
yeah, but yes, that is feasible or not is not yet proven.
Well, that's Well, part of the problem is the observed data. Is an
That's
issue.
why I want to see that that kind of a nuance is there. We have to do some research before we can really say that it's that kind of real prediction is feasible or not.
Whether the prediction is
You just
feasible
change
or
wood to
whether
may.
the influence is real.
May be required.
May be required.
Maybe. Doesn't hurt to say.
Would be
No,
useful.
I think that the some ocean data guidance would be necessary to produce initial condition, but it may be to produce correct some higher circulation initialization. But at the same time, it may be required to bound the possible range of influence of initial condition. Such aspect is also present.
Yeah, that's predictability studies.
So, should we put in something that recognizes these are interesting research, or there's something about research questions involved with these?
We have something right at the top about, is this possible?
Jerry?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think in
I mean,
some
this-
sense we're getting hung up on soil moisture rather than soil conditions, because permafrost is going to matter on longer time scales than
Right.
soil moisture potentially.
Soil
So
conditions.
there's
That may be a good idea.
One model problem that we've had historically is that our soils are frozen too late into the spring season, which means the evapotranspiration doesn't start early enough, and everything that results from that doesn't start early enough.
and that's something as you go to more sophisticated land surface schemes, that actually is not a trivial player in the heat uptake.
Yeah. So I think maybe if we just say may be required, that kind of indicates that there's issues there. We won't go into them, but that kind of implies that these are need to be looked at.
Yeah, that it's a research
Yeah,
issue.
research issue. Okay. Anything else? Okay. To 2100 and beyond.
Nobody else has seen me in this lousy writing that I got in front of me.
We'll
so
see.
this
We'll
is
see.
really-
We'll see it in a minute.
This could be embarrassing, right? So I don't know how to approach this in the sense that, you know, Peter's proposal, I just listed the advantages that I saw of that proposal.
Okay.
And the scenarios that we proposed.
So that's probably one of your first things, right?
Okay.
Yep.
So first
Or
thing I had
experimental
was,
design. Experimental design.
Pardon?
Yep. Okay.
And scenarios. Okay. So one is relatively few future integrations required of the ESMs. And then by that I mean that in the AR4 there was, now I don't know if the terminology future integrations, we're meaning the simulations of 2100, the 21st century.
Future climate projections.
Yeah, I'm using shorthand. I'm not sure, so after you get done typing that in, I'm not sure you should type any of this in, you should just listen.
Okay.
In AR4, 3 future projections were integrated by most groups. The 2 required integrations per scenario with 2 required scenarios yielding 4 future integrations means there's only 1 additional integration for AR5. Modeling groups that do not have an ESM would only have 2 future integrations required.
Yeah, well, that's worth putting there, I think.
So that was all one big bullet.
Yes, I'm still confused about ensembles in this proposed.
Our proposed ensembles was 2 if you, or more if you, it's a research question.
Okay, but you're only asking for 1. So in fact, the number of runs you're asking for here is rather small.
Well, we only asked for 1 in AR4.
Okay.
So what were your numbers on these additional ones?
Pardon?
So you had 3 for the AR4.
3 for the AR4, and then in this proposal there's 4 for AR5 for the people with ESMs, and 2 for the people without an ESM.
Okay. Or something like that.
Okay, I'm typing too. Another advantage is that the non-ESM results can be directly compared with the ESM results for the physical climate system, as in AR4.
So was that non-ESM results can be directly compared with
The ESM results for the physical climate system.
Okay.
All right, 3. So these are the ones where I'm more confident. These are the ones I'm less confident. Using benchmark scenarios allows the Working Group 3 community to supply new scenarios to the Working Group 1 community in a timely manner.
Using benchmark scenarios allows the working group to provide these scenarios
to the Working Group 1 community in a timely manner. The development of a
You mean to provide these scenarios or to provide simulation results?
No, to provide some scenarios.
3 to 1 scenarios.
The development of a complete new set
Okay.
of scenarios would take several years. Now, Mackey's probably going to whack at those sentences, but that was the idea.
Yep.
Right, use stylized instead of benchmark.
I thought we agreed on the word benchmark
Agreed
to
on
describe
benchmark?
these things.
Yeah, benchmark.
But I'm willing to go for style. I don't care what the adjective is.
So I think so I think we needed to add something in this first one then that
What you doing? Oh, using the 2, the benchmark scenarios. There we go.
well, kind of, it's not. It's a. This is this terminology about using stabilization. So is one like a reference, and the other one is stabilization, or is it just high?
No, they're both stabilization.
They're both stabilization. So it's high and low.
A high and low.
Just put stabilization in front of word scenario.
Concentration.
High and low.
Forcing's fine, I thought.
Forcing, I think, yeah.
You put stabilization
In front of scenarios, so it reads 2 new benchmark scenarios. The only thing I don't like about the word benchmark is that could apply to, you know, the point here is that we're just doing something that's indicative. We're not trying to, you know, say this is our best guess or something. These are just stylized forcings.
Well, I mean, this benchmark word has come up in a couple of different contexts, and that was the word that John Mitchell used in his letter to Pachari, and I don't know if that's coming anywhere else that people have heard, but that's kind of what they were talking about. Is these would be benchmark, meaning that they are not any specific scenario from a specific group. They're general. They're kind of generalized in some way, so that you can derive information, more information from them. Okay.
I have one more
advantage.
You guys can whack at this one. This scheme.
This what?
This scheme.
Scheme? What scheme?
They proposed.
Experimental design?
Experimental design.
Scheme doesn't really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, maybe that's
like
like
a positive spin on
right.
the word nefarious.
It could be. You wait to hear what follows. Starts a rational procedure.
You want to just read the whole thing first?
Or
Right.
interactions between working group 1 and working group 3 communities. And by that I was meaning for the updating of the scenarios and the models used to produce the scenarios.
It's more like the process involved with this experimental design.
Most other interactions or interactions.
Well, it also depends on interaction between the working group 1 and working group 3 communities, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to that in a second.
Could you say allows for feedback between?
Something like that.
You may not even need the depends on interactions between, because that would be implied by feedback. Say just depends on feedback between working group 1 and 3 communities, or establishes or something. Feedback.
Yeah, establishes.
I'm part of that community, I don't want to be.
This interactions is more inclusive than feedback.
So you don't need feedback, yeah, right? Establishes pathways for necessary interaction or something like that. Or avenues.
Pathways.
Like avenues better than pathways.
All of our
super
Pathways.
Goes.
A fast
Internet
train.
connections.
Well, interactions takes care of connections.
Yeah, right.
Guidelines.
Is that all you had, Ron?
I got some recommendations,
Oh, good. That's good.
which I forgot about when I wrote the draft. Just thought about this now.
Okay.
The first and probably most important recommendation is that the working group 2 and 3 IPCC reports be lagged about a half of an IPCC cycle, implying a 2 to 3 year lag behind the working group 1 report. That's one recommendation.
Okay.
The next two both have to do with data.
Yep.
I don't know how the right way to say this, but there's the need for a PCM DI equivalent for working groups 1, 2, and 3. Or an expanded role for the DDC or something. You can make it more positive.
Yeah. Okay.
Second is there's a recommendation that the working groups 2 and 3 have input into the variable list to be archived from the AR5 common models. And
Put into the
development of a, yeah, fine. And the carbon list needs developed.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
We were talking about the need for working groups 2 and 3 to have a WGCM type community organizing mechanism, right?
Yeah, that could go into the oversight of that, whatever that organization is. That could go into that bullet. That's good.
Function's not the right word. Committee, mechanism. That's good. Okay. Any other overall recommendations?
That's
Anybody
all I
can
thought
think
of under the gun in the last 5 minutes.
So is that it? Is everybody happy with this? Hearing nothing, we'll say that that's
A wrap.
a wrap. Yeah. Yep.
You know, the time lag thing has come up, I know, in the last 2 cycles of the assessment, right?
Yep.
Given that the probability that that recommendation will again be rejected.
Well, you never know.
Well, the thing is, what would you do if it didn't? I mean, is that worth discussing here, or at least adding something to that bullet about the consequences of not doing it?
Strike.
an issue of IPCC report time lag or model run time lag? Because the model runs don't have to. I mean, it's an issue mainly of the model runs getting done and getting out there in time for people to use them. In that case, it's really just a matter of
It's
being.
not just the model runs getting out there, it's the model runs getting out there and the papers from the model runs getting accepted and published so that there's confidence in the analysis that's done as input
I mean,
to the
the
rest.
second best is that, I guess what you're implying, Steve, is that we could do the work staggered even if we only had reports synchronized.
Mhm.
And I guess the requirement, the drive to have the reports synchronized so you can have an overall summary of the whole IPCC findings.
Yeah.
That may still be a major
Right. I think that's.
limitation.
I think in the past that's been the response to this is they wanted, the assessment to include all three working groups at the same time. So you have one assessment.
But the reality of that is that much of the working group 2 and 3 reports are making use of the science in the previous assessment.
Yeah.
And it leads the implication, particularly because it's not distinct in the public summary for policymakers, for the assessment report, that actually working groups 2 and 3 are making use of the working group 1 science. So there's confusion out there in the use of the assessment by people who aren't, familiar with the details about what's actually going on.
Yeah, and it can lead to contradictions because the newer model runs may have some comment, for example, on wetness in a certain region, and the older model runs didn't have that, and working group 2 doesn't have that.
Right. I would say one way that, as a get around, a plan B would be to ask the modeling community to make their runs in 2009, 2010 as we were planning to do, because I don't think we can move that time scale. We can't change that time scale right now.
Right.
That's a done deal for the modeling community. If you fix that and then delay the IPCC report another 2 or 3 years,
That's just what I was thinking.
and link them together so you make it 2015 for the next or
Right,
16.
if they're all going to be together.
Right, but
Just
then
together.
the IPCC report will come out using a model of yours that you ran 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If
Well,
the
they're doing
IPCC
that now anyway.
No,
That's what we're trying to get away
working
from.
group 2 and 3 are doing that, but 1's not doing
This
that.
way, we'll all be in the same boat, right? Sinking boat.
I don't think any of the modeling groups would be happy with that because their latest models aren't getting into the IPCC.
But you could have a special report, like this was a special report.
No, there's too much work to produce these reports. You don't want to do any more reports.
I mean, there is precedent. For example, the Summer and Winter Olympics used to be the same time.
Well, I remember when we did the U.S. government review of the second assessment report, we looked at this thing, we looked at it all together, and that's exactly what we found out. Well, because the U.S. government review forced us to look at everything all together at once, and we said, it was obvious that the working group 2 and 3 conclusions were not based on the working group 1 science because of this time delay. A lot of it wasn't. And at that time, we said the government should, the people that were involved in the government review said, we should recommend these things be staggered. I don't know how far up that recommendation got, but
It was made.
Huh?
We tried to do it in the planning of the third assessment report.
So I mean, it just that's how long that was. We did that review in 1994 or something like that.
No, it would have been 95. Early 95.
Okay, but that's been 11 years. That recommendation was made. We've gone through now 2 additional cycles, and this isn't happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of at some level it's out of our control, but I mean it's probably worth again noting it here.
Yeah, I think if you note it, and if you note the scientifically the disadvantages of this, as you've just articulated, you're basing the results of 2 working groups on 6-year-old model results, and this clearly is not desirable, particularly in this rapid phase of model development.
You could add that phrase to this point.
And data collection. I mean, we have a whole bunch of new observational programs, satellites flying, and there's a whole series that are scheduled to go in the next few years. This is a time of rapid evolution in the science because we're finally getting the payoff from all the investment in the hardware.
The rationale that the government, the delegates have not done this because they feel that somehow there's more of a publicity bonanza to be gained by having everything come out at once.
And I think there's a little bit.
And I don't think there's any evidence to indicate that that's true, that really happens.
No.
Well,
In
the other
fact,
thing is,
it's
I think
more
there's a little
effective
bit.
if you keep hitting it time after time, as opposed to waiting another 6 years before it comes out.
Right.
There's a little bit of intellectual dishonesty. I think they want to give the impression that it's based on the latest science, and it's not. That's been my cynical viewpoint after watching this thing up close too many times.
We didn't need the word cynical.
Goes without saying.
Yeah, okay, so is that kind of what you're thinking there? So we're talking about these relatively outdated, up to 6 years model simulations in the previous assessment. It'd be more desirable for fall through working groups use as close to current generation model output or model experiments as possible.
Yeah.
Oh, nice little music for us. That's a nice touch at the end of the day. Yeah. Okay, so I think we can stop there, and John has some.
Yeah, one announcement.